Hi, Stamper fans. Welcome to another Make It Monday broadcast. I am Nan Gerlitz, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Bloomington, Illinois, and I'm usually live here on my YouTube channel every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central Time. Tonight I am not live because here in the United States it is Labor Day holiday and we're having family over, so I decided to pre-record a video so you'd still have one to watch tonight, but this way gives me the flexibility to spend time with my family. So welcome, welcome. It's a little bit different than our normal broadcast because of the software I use to show my face and then switch to the hands down version. It's only available when I'm doing lives. So we're just looking at the pretty projects tonight. So tonight I have for you this cute little squirrel card. Pink squirrel, anyone? I had a friend that used to drink pink squirrels, so that's what I always think of when I make a pink one. And that's the fun part about stamping, right? Squirrels are usually brown or gray or sometimes black, but when you're stamping them, you can make them any color you want. So, and I actually got the colors from the designer paper I decided to use in this card. So that's where I kind of, designer paper is a fabulous inspiration for color combinations, and especially like when you're like, what color do I make a squirrel if it's not a regular color? Whatever color you want. So with that, as always, I have put the link to full supply list and cardstock measurements right in the video description, so you don't have to worry about frantically writing down numbers or anything. You can just click that link after you've viewed to go back and cut your cardstock the same way if you want to recreate this. So this video will be as if I'm live because I don't have strong editing skills, and I feel like when I do live videos you get more of my personality, and that's really why I'm doing them to start with. Hopefully you enjoy that. So what we'll be using tonight is our Nuts About Squirrels photopolymer stamp set. Photopolymer simply means that it is a clear see-through set, and when you're having sets like this where you have two-step stamping and you're going to try to line things up, it's obviously a lot easier to do that when the stamps are clear. So we will also be using our Stamparatus, which I'll show you in a minute, to help us line those up perfectly. All right, we'll be using 4 different ink colors tonight: Blackberry Bliss, Old Olive, Petal Pink, and Pool Party. And again, these colors were specifically drawn from the designer paper that I decided to use. And as far as cardstock, so we're starting with an Old Olive base, 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4. We're going to go ahead and use our bone folder to give that a good crisp crease. This was so cute. The grand boys were over yesterday for a quick swim and a little bit of just hanging out. And Jeffrey, the older one, he's 5. He has been liking to stamp for a few years. And my daughter was making one of her paper pumpkin kits, so she was making actual cards, and he decided he wanted to make a card too. So what we did was I pulled out one of the kits that I had bought and had him make just one of each of the 2 cards that were in there. And I taught him that whole trick with the bone folder. So he was very serious in showing his younger brother how to use that on the second card. It was very cute. Oh, and I did not cut that one down. So let's just do that on camera. The joys of kind of live video. So our next layer is a Petal Pink layer, and that is going to be 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. Get rid of those little scraps. Next we have a Blackberry Bliss layer, and this one is 5 1/8 inch by 3 7/8 inch, because I just wanted that skinny pink border there. We'll also be using 2 pieces, sometimes my brain doesn't work, of basic white cardstock, and these are each 5 1/4 by 4 inches, one for the inside, one for our fun squirrels. We've got a couple of strips of the designer paper that I have. I picked this specifically because it had these kind of leafy designs, and I felt like that lent itself to squirrels because they're hanging around in the leaves all the time. So these are each 1 inch by 3 3/4 inches. The length is a little less precise really because it just needs to hide behind there. So it could be only a couple of inches long and it's fine. And then I have a skinny strip of basic white. This is a 1/2 inch by 4 inches. And these are what's often left over when I'm cutting these quarter sheets of cardstock for the inside and outside pieces, right? So you have that skinny little 1/2 inch. Well, they're perfect for these great little sentiments like this. So I have kind of just a stack of these next to my stamping area on my island in my craft room. Okay, we will also be using our Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, the Big Boss, because we'll be using the deckled rectangle dies. And these dies, the exception of some of the smaller ones, won't fit through the mini Boss. And so I'm going to be using some of the larger ones. So we do need that bigger platform to go through. Okay. We will also be using our Stamparatus. And this is how I'm going to line up those squirrels and their inside fur, I guess, perfectly, along with that acorn. That's another piece that I can line up perfectly with this. Aside from that, we'll be using our trimmer, some basic adhesive, and dimensionals. And with that, away we go, right? Okay, so if you've been following me for a minute, you know I like to get the inside of my card out of the way right away, because I like to have as few pieces as possible kind of on deck to work on. So let's do that. Forgot to bring a block over in order to do my inside. I could totally do this with the Stamparatus, but for these little bits I'm doing, I feel like it's easier to just use a small block. So I'm going to use my Petal Pink ink pad and this little leaf. We're just going to put one in each corner. And then there is a little leaf vein stamp. So we're going to use our Blackberry Bliss for this. Just kind of match that up with the front of the card. Super cute. So I love this because this little leaf image would be perfect to use on some fall cards, Halloween even. You could totally use it for spring cards as well, depending if you're Blackberry Bliss all over my thumb. Depending on the look you're going for, what colors you use, you could kind of make your own designer paper out of this and just stamp a big piece and then cut it into whatever pieces you want. So let's go ahead and attach this to the middle. And I do have a couple of cool little tips for you along the way that are a little out of the ordinary, that aren't ones that I just use every week. So hopefully you'll learn something new from this video today. All right, so we will set aside our card base. And let's move on to stamping those squirrels. I keep putting things on top of other things and then I can't find them, so. The life of a stamper, right? Okay, so let's get our Stamparatus out and let me show you the easiest way I have found to line up these little squirrelies. So with the Stamparatus, you don't want to store it with both plates because this one is impeded by the other one, and then it'll put some extra stress on the hinge. So I always store it with just one plate in, and a lot of times that's all I need to use while I'm stamping. So it's perfectly fine to do that. Let me grab one of my magnets. So I love that we have these super, super strong magnets on the Stamparatus. You have 2 of them on the bottom, and they each have their own little cubby hole. You want to make sure that if you are using them together, that you don't get them close to each other because they will snap together and they can shatter. I've actually seen the jagged pieces of leftovers from people that have done that. So please be careful. They are super strong and fabulous, but of course, they just need a little TLC. Okay, no, first I'm going to stamp the squirrels on. No, I think I did the, sorry. Whoo, I'm so off with this not being live. It's kind of funny. Okay, so what I want is I just want to make sure I'm getting these kind of top and bottom, and they're going to fit on the cardstock. So we're going to put the inside filler of these squirrels down. Okay, and then we'll pick them up with our plate. See, and that's something with the photopolymer stamps because they're so sticky. I usually just put my bone folder in there, and that will keeps the paper down while the stamp is lifting up. So what I want to do, we'll put our stamp case under our plate so it stays level. So we want this bottom squirrel, we're going to ink up. Let me make sure we're on camera here. We're going to ink up with our petal pink because pink squirrel. The top one we're going to use Pool Party. So you can see that these are far enough away from each other, so it's no problem for me to ink them up in separate colors, and absolutely just fine. So now what I'm going to do, and I know what you're thinking, you didn't put your cardstock in. Well, no, because I'm going to do this on the grid paper first, okay? And then what I can do, I think I'm going to use the other plate because it's a little clearer. Close that up so I don't get ink all over because, you know, I already got it all over my hands. Okay, now we're going to take those detail outlines of these squirrels and line them up on those images because it's a lot easier to do it this way than it is trying to go through a block and get those lined up. Where's my eye? There it is. And the feet. I'm very nearsighted, and so I wear glasses, as you've probably noticed from watching my videos. And normally when I'm doing detail work like this, I will take my glasses off and I will get my head like right over the work. So this is a bit of a challenge for me, I'll be honest. Okay, what I'm trying to do is find that there's that little notch there where his eye is. So I'm trying to line that up. And I also want to line up the feet. All right, we're going to give that a try. So we will pick those up with the plate. All right, and I will tell you where I've got my magnet there is actually interfering with the hinge. So when that plate comes down, it was kind of hitting the magnet first. Okay, so now I'm going to go against my little rules and I'm just going to ink these up this way instead of keeping them flat. That's because I don't have a lot of space right now. Okay, so now we're going to pull these down. We're going to give them a press and we're going to make sure that they're lined up perfectly. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's pretty good, but this guy needs a little bit of adjusting. Okay, so let me grab my chamois. Because I forgot to bring that over with me. I'm going to clean off that little guy. So I had them just a little low, kind of a little wonky. So the tail seemed to be pretty good, but those feet and ears and whatnot needed to be up farther. There's the ears. It is a little tough because the color is lighter. So I think if I had a darker color on the body, you know, if I had like a gray or something, maybe I could have done that better. Now, that did move, but I knew I had it right in the corner up there, so that's another really good tip. If you have your paper in the corner or some spot that you can check, you know that it'll be correct. Let's give that another press. I am still off a little bit. I think what I'm going to do here, we're going to try another outline. So I'm going to move him over here and try again because I'm getting confused by the other lines. So when I did this on Friday night, I will tell you that I got it perfect the very first try. And a lot of that was because I could get my head right over the image when I was stamping. And I'm having trouble with that now because I'm doing a video. So, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this little guy. And then I'm going to pull this out of frame so I can get my head right over the top of it. So please excuse my hair or anything if that gets in the way. Okay, so I've just lined it up right over there. We are going to make sure that this doesn't move. Pick that up. Okay, so let's try again. Let's see how we do. The key when you're working with the Stamparatus is once you have things in place, don't move any of your stamps and make sure that you know exactly where your paper needs to go. That guy doesn't want to get in there. All right, we give it a good press. Okay, so I didn't stamp it all the way, but I'm going to pick this up, and you can see that I've perfectly got those feet and the eye hole and all that kind of stuff perfectly lined up. So it does work, and it will work for you much better because you're probably not going to be filming videos while you're doing it. So now that we've got them all lined up, now I could make a bunch of this card and not have to line it up every time. So what we'll do is, let's go ahead and do this guy first. So I'm just going to put my cardstock over where that squirrel is. In fact, let's move it just a tad over here. Now with this time, I am going to anchor that with my magnet because I don't have it all the way in the corner. So I want to make sure that if it does move, or I want to make sure it doesn't move so that I know it'll be perfectly lined up. So we're going to ink up our little pool party squirrel again. We're going to give him a good press. Now that other stamp is hitting the magnet, so I'm going to have to really lean down on this. Perfect. Okay, and now we've got our outline. So we'll get our Blackberry Bliss out. Again, give that a good press. Perfectly lined up. So there's a little spot here where it just didn't ink up enough, in my opinion. So we can go right back down and it hits the same spot because it's perfectly lined up, right? So that guy's done. So now let's stamp our pink squirrel down here. I'm just gonna line that up with a corner, put that up here. Now we need our petal pink. Okay, we will ink up that standing squirrel. First, I want to clean this guy off. and take him off of here because I don't want him ruining the rest of my cardstock. All right, stamp our pink guy, super cute. Just gonna clean that off right away. Okay, now we will ink up, once again, let's clean off the one we already stamped and get him off of there. Only because he's gonna hit right there if I were to stamp him again. Okay, little Blackberry Bliss on the outline of this one. And perfect. Okay, so that is our Stamparatus. I absolutely love this tool for things like this. As I said, it was a little wonky getting that lined up today, but that's only because I'm shooting a video. Okay. Oh, I did forget. I got to bring that Stamparatus back in here because I need to stamp the inside of my acorn. Okay, so I already took one plate off. That's fine. Let's get that squirrel off of there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, because I think that's where I had it, but I'm not positive. So instead of lining it up on the grid paper, I'm just going to line it up right on our squirrel here. Excuse my head again. Okay, so we can pick that guy up. Now we can ink this and then clean it and line the other one up. Or the cool thing is when you hold the plates straight up and down, you can pull them right out and flip them, and now I have another surface. So now I can take the bottom of the acorn stamp, and there is a little cutout kind of hole for that little squirrel hand that's holding the acorn. So if you line that, pardon me again, make sure that hand is lined up, and the rest of that acorn should be pretty lined up as well. So now I know that both of those are lined up. We'll go ahead and do a little pool party for the acorn body part. Voila. And then we're just going to lift this up and flip it. And we will ink up the cap of the acorn with our old olive and stamp that down. There we go. Now he's finished. All right. Let's get some ink pads closed up. I could also use the Stamparatus in order to stamp my sentiment. Oops. Now I've got old olive on my arm. You guys, it is a day, let me tell you. Okay. I need my Hey There stamp. We could easily do this just with a block because the stamps are see-through. So pretty easy to line up with a block as well. But as I said, you can also do this with the Stamparatus, and the same kind of thing applies. You could stamp it on the grid paper first and then line that paper up right where you wanted it. I want to get this kind of centered. It doesn't matter to me if it's exactly centered. And of course, I'm going to pick it up anyway, so. All right, a little bit of Blackberry Bliss. And straight down. Hey there. Okay. I've got quite a bit of cleanup to do when I'm done here because I have not been cleaning my stamps as I go for the most part. So Okay, so that's all of our stamping done. Let's bring our die cut machine out, our stamp and cut and emboss machine. And the first thing I'm actually going to die cut is this petal pink paper. And you may be saying, I don't see any of that anywhere. Well, this is my little way of saving a little bit of money and saving weight. So if you're mailing things, this will cut down on any extra postage. It's a good way to do that. So we're going to take our number 2 plate, our number 1 plate, our number 2 plate, and a number 3 cutting pad. So I've labeled one of them top, and I've tried to keep that on the top all the time. The reason for that is because of all the cut lines. Sometimes you get some texture in your paper, and especially when you're dealing with the metallic foils, you'll get those texture lines in there when you're die cutting. So I'm trying to keep one plate that's cleaner and see if that makes a difference. All right. So I'm just going to take one of our deckled rectangles, one that is smaller than this layer, and I'm just going to cut out the center because you don't see the center of that pink layer. You're really only needing the frame. So when we do this, that means that you're still going to get the frame that you needed, but you can use this extra cutout piece on another card, which I will be showing you later on Facebook this week because I did use it on another card. Okay, so, I forgot my other little hint on the rectangles. If you have something with an edge like this that is, and you put it in parallel to the machine, it's a lot harder to crank through, and it puts some pressure on the machine. It won't break it, but I think, probably a little more wear and tear than is needed. So if you put it on a little bit of a diagonal, it's easier to get it through. It doesn't make a horrible noise, and it puts less pressure on your machine. So there you go. There's my little deckled rectangle that I'll use on another card. So we also want to cut out our squirrels. Now, there they are. So the deal with our squirrels is, you might have noticed that I don't have a rectangle that matches the size that I cut those squirrels. Well, I will show you how to do that. So this means you can change the size of pretty much any kind of die you're using by doing a partial cutout. That was the size I used. Okay. So what you're going to do, there's a couple of different ways to do this. You can go ahead and cut him out completely. So we'll do that for this first one. Let's put him on a little bit of an angle. You just don't want anything going off the platform, because that's how wide the opening is. So if you do that, then it's not going to go through. So I'll just put it on a little bit of an angle, pop that through. And we will cut him out completely. And then what you can do is go back over and just line up your sides. A bit of an angle there. And so now it's not obviously going to cut the parts I've already cut. It's just going to cut that, the back end to make it shorter. So that's one way you can do this. And for this particular project, that's the easiest way to do it. I, of course, went the harder way. Oh, and now look at that. So I take off that little guy. Now I've got a little deckled rectangle I could use for a sentiment on another card. So maybe I'll challenge myself to put all of that on one card. So now I've got one of my little squirrels cut out. Let us just rip off this extra because it'll be easier to deal with what's left here. So the other way you can do this is, okay, I want to cut it off about here. Actually, this is the better way to show you in case you have a piece of cardstock that this is not going to work for. So let's angle this again. Nope, that's right. So with this particular thing, I do have to put them in straight. And I'm going to put the edge of the plate where I want it to stop cutting. So push this through. It does not want to take that top plate. I'm going to turn this around because I think that's the way I did it on Friday. So sorry. But see, this way you get to see how even somebody that's been doing this for 20 years is not perfect. So we'll put it down this way. I want to lead with this, and we're going to stop the plate where we want it to stop cutting. So it's not going to cut any of this that's outside of that sandwich, as it were. Now you can see how you get a little more noise, a little more stress. Okay, so what we've got is just 3 sides cut. Now this is a cool idea if you're making, say, your own advent calendar, and you could put a score line right there and you could have little doors that open up. Or if you wanted to tuck something behind here but have it still attached. So there's a lot of cool little uses for that. So now, again, you will just line up those edges, and you can kind of feel it kind of sits in there a little bit because it's already cut. And now this is the edge, the only edge that we really care about cutting this time. So we'll get that set. And we can actually cover the whole thing because those edges are already cut. This out of the way. And there you go. There's your other little square. So a couple of different ways to cut partial die cuts. So it's a good trick to know if you have your die cutting machine. Always helpful to know extra little things you can do with it, right? Okay, so that's all the die cutting we're doing. Let's go ahead and start some assembly. Okay, so I've cut this frame big enough that I can use my stamp and seal. It's probably pretty much, I'm going to use it like on each corner here. If I had cut it skinnier, I probably would have used my liquid adhesive so I didn't get adhesive all over the place. Make sure we've got this opening the correct way. This is also a neat trick if you are, let's say I was doing some oval punches or dragonflies or something like that. I could punch those images from the middle of one of my under layers, and then I'm going to cover it up with another layer so nobody would ever know that that was under there. So another good little tip for you if you're looking to save money, if you're looking to save weight on your cards. You know, it's always nice to have things stretch farther, right? Plus the fact that if you have a piece of cardstock that you've punched like a dragonfly or something out of the middle of, you know, you can't always use it for something else. But if you've hidden that punch out behind something, that works really well. Okay, so for this, I want to make sure I get some of this blackberry in here. So I think that one. And then I don't care about the daffodil so much because we didn't use it on this card. So I want to make sure I've got some of those other colors that I've used. Okay, so you'll see these are not going side to side. I'm just going to attach them so that they do butt up against opposite sides of the card. So this one will butt up to the left side of that blackberry layer, and this one will butt up to the right side. And this was actually the Stamper Man's idea, because when I first envisioned this card, I was going to die cut these squirrels in circles, and then I was going to have another big circle of the designer paper, and I was using pieces that I couldn't get the circles cut out of. I had cut them too narrow. So then I was like, uh-oh, now what do I do? So we brainstormed together, and this was his idea, was to use these pieces coming out of them. Okay, so these little guys are going to go up on dimensionals. There's one in each corner. Let's get the other one over here. Because I felt like it needed a little something oomphy. It's very angular, this card, which is normally not my style, but I did end up liking how it turned out. We'll get our take your pick tool out and get those backings off. It's the easiest way to do it. Our little blue squirrel will go up here, and so I just want a peek of that Blackberry Bliss on the outside. Ah, I'm stuck to it. And our pink squirrel. Okay, so now you'll notice we've got a cool little angled cut on each side of this, and it's actually the perfect angle on both sides. It's like the same angle. It's a little tip that I learned from my friend Jamie. Let's get my take your pick out of the way. So you'll put one end in and just cut it at whatever angle you want on your trimmer. Let me make sure that this is on. Yes, there we go. So just cut it at any angle you want, and then when you flip it over, you will line up this angle with one of the lines on your trimmer. And then when I cut the other side, it will be the same angle. That is a really helpful, really easy tip. Thank you very much, Jamie. All right, and so this one's going to go on right with just flat to the card. And just side to side here. There we go. There are our two squirrely cards. Once again, remember to follow me on Facebook if you are over there. I'm at facebook.com/StamperNan. I'm Stampernan pretty much everywhere on the internet, so you can definitely follow me over there, and I will be sharing lots of other cute little critter cards this week with, you know, some tips, maybe new products, who knows, along the way. So until then, I will be back live here next week on YouTube. And if you like this video, if you learned a little something new, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and also share it with your friends. Until next week, I'm still Nan Gerlitz. Happy stamping.